Oh my, there was a lot to unpack in this episode. Hi all, I'm Rick and this is my review for episode 5, Imposters, of Star Trek Picard's Season 3. When Changelings became involved, we all knew there was going to be a lot of suspicion and paranoia to go around. That's just what comes when you are dealing with infiltration. But it seems like the extent at which Starfleet has been compromised is rather grand. Over the course of the episode, the level of what we are dealing with is exposed through the reveal of a familiar face. Ro Laren returns at the rank of commander within Starfleet, but I'm getting ahead of myself. As the episode fills in, Ro had betrayed Starfleet and joined the Maquis movement in opposition to the Cardassians obtaining a series of colonies previously owned by the Federation in the episode Preemptive Strike. Revisiting this betrayal serves as a centerpiece for Picard in this story with the additional suspicions of the Changeling infiltration. The back and forth between Ro and Picard was tense to see, and the introduction of Crusher's results that the Changelings can pass the blood tests maintained that tension just when you thought it was easing. Similar for the holodeck scene, when it became clear that Ro knew what was happening and likewise was testing Picard. Imposters abound, it seems, even within the Admiralty of Starfleet and infesting many levels of its operation. You can see why she would suspect Picard. He participates in the diversion of the Titan, beelines straight for his son, a key figure in her investigation, and he could very well be an imposter. Ro Laren was always an outsider, as stated by Riker, but Picard holds people to high standards. He places great emphasis on loyalty and morality, and for the most part of his career it is true that Starfleet has often aligned with his ideals, and thus it is easy for him to conflate morality and duty. I'm using many quotes from this episode, quite frankly, because the dialogue and understanding on show of Picard and Ro's characters, I think, is on point and eloquently explained. Picard's standards can be stifling, especially for someone like Laren who is more prone to follow her impressions of right and wrong. Picard has done this too in the past, which does make him kinda hypocritical, but only when he felt someone else in Starfleet was betraying its ideals. Quite simply, he's been hurt by her defecting and rehearsing his speech for 30 years. Blind faith in an institution is not the same thing indeed, and Picard was never necessarily blind. It's just his and Starfleet's ideals nearly always lined up. The emotional catharsis eventually comes when he realises that he had placed great hopes and respect on Laren, and she in turn on him, but their views on morals versus loyalty differed slightly, just enough to lead them into different paths. After all, she returned to Starfleet to face her crime and embraced the second chance in Starfleet intelligence. Picard was right to see that she does value dedication and duty, just not to the extent that she would let them conflict with her doing the right thing. This plays out in the positioning in the bar scene too, with the counter initially being between them while they are confrontational, and then they're on the same side by the end of it, much as the distance in the biobeds was with Beverly and Picard in their earlier confrontation in episode 3. Ro and Picard's resolution is tinged with the tragedy of her sacrifice, but the torch and her investigation was passed to someone she ultimately trusted. The Changelings too have changed. It seems they've become more adept at shapeshifting down to the ability to replicate blood and internal organs, as well as maintain the physical form they last took. Interestingly, I don't think we've seen them adopt any inorganic form yet, so I wonder if this increased proficiency came at the cost of diversity in shapes. The gains, however, are that they seem to be able to now bypass pretty much every security system created by Starfleet during the Dominion War. Blood tests, transporters, and even some funky new scanners devised to detect changeling physiology. Beverly cites evolution as a factor, but I think it's an artificial one. After all, genetics are a specialty of the Dominion, and perhaps this new variation on the shape-shifting leaders are not just renegades, but unable to return to the Great Link, truly separated from it and dedicated to taking down the Federation. Another weakness seems to be that they're apparently subject to the same vulnerabilities as a solid when in that form, considering one suffers a broken neck. And there are more of them than just a handful, it seems. We see 6 that we know of already, all now dead, but there must be more. The whole thing gives me TNG's conspiracy vibes with a strong dose of Battlestar Galactica, although that could just be from seeing Michelle Forbes again. Whoever is in command of the USS Intrepid for a start is clearly one, but not only that, they have all the pieces they need to place the blame on the USS Titan and its crew. The setup has all the justification it needs. Picard and Riker going rogue, tricking Captain Shaw into acting out, the death of the person sent to investigate them, Ro, followed by the seeming attack on the Intrepid while harbouring a fugitive. From an outside perspective, even legitimate people within Starfleet can look at this and place the Titan on a wanted list, and that's a scary thought. Jack Crusher, on the other hand, seems to have no problem identifying changelings. No, his problems seem to be rooted in something else. His visions are getting worse, and he seems to be unaware of their origin too, witnessing branches now ensnaring people and also entering a trance state where he's unaware of his actions. He seems to be even having trouble telling reality from these illusions, and worryingly finds himself even beginning to act out his visions. I'm glad he has confided in Beverly, because for a while I thought he would keep it to himself. The moment where he has to put on the uniforms to hide in plain sight was preying off his fears. The questions racing through his mind when he finds himself acting out violence on the bridge crew in a uniform, very uncharacteristic in both act and appearance, only to then have to don one, well, it throws him. And the questions raised amplify. Are these prophetic visions intrusive thoughts? We hear a voice too, its phrase book getting ever expanded, including calls like "find me," and it all sounds like a call to him to return home to something. So the question has to be asked, is Jack himself some form of changeling? Hearing a call to return, which may be why they are after him? But if that is so, what about him being Picard's son? I don't want to see Jean-Luc robbed of another chance of family, and what of Beverly? Now, I don't think Jack is a changeling, or anything so severe, but the thought has entered my mind, and I can't be the only one. The mystery surrounding him is deepening with every episode, and every time we get an answer to one aspect of his life, another question rises. Now, I do think I know an upcoming reveal thanks to an apparent subtitle issue, but I'll leave that to the very end because spoilers are one thing, but yeah, this may be a mistake that led to an unintentional reveal. Crin was a great element too, a criminal Vulcan who cites logic to back up his reasoning. He clearly has emotional triggers despite his calm facade, and straight away we're having an interesting character that is deeper than just a new bad guy. He has history from the experiences he cites and the scars he bears. Worf and Raffi are making a very good team, and it's a pairing I would never have suspected, but am really enjoying. I can never tell which one is going to play the bad cop and which is going to be the good one, and their dynamic keeps flipping, yet they remain on the same page. With the USS Titan now on the run, I think we can see why things are beginning to slot into place when it comes to their icy reception at the hands of LaForge later on in the series. Clearly, they will target the Daystrom facility at some point soon, and with the mentions of an AI security program, who wants to bet it's Moriarty? With Lore being present there too, it looks like Daystrom was researching advanced AI. It's too much of a coincidence to have the two most complicated programs created in one place. Speaking of holograms, it's interesting to see that Starfleet has reverse engineered the mobile emitter. I noticed the emitter on Raffi's arm earlier and was happy to see it pay off. Little moments like that, not going to lie, give me a little smug moment. Well, that's fine, because other parts of this show have me scratching my head in confusion and set my theory crafting alight. Watching Captain Shaw this episode was honestly delightful. The glee that Git has in having Picard and Riker face the music was unprofessional and discourteous, yes, but I can't lie, it brought a smile to my face. He cites the films of Generations, Insurrection, and the finale of All Good Things as incidents where Picard and Riker had jeopardized their career or the Federation, which is a point. As a viewer, we were there for those events and can see the justifications, but just like a third party perusing Kirk's personnel file, you can easily see the times where reprimands were lax. That has to irritate a straight arrow like Shaw, especially as it centres on Locutus and triggers some deep personal issues. Still, I think he's already come some way in developing. On to that spoiler now. So, subtitles apparently attribute Jack's voices to the Borg Queen, so he may have inherited a connection to the hive mind from his father. How that factors in, however, remains to be seen, but it adds to the Daystrom AI theory too. But why the Changeling involvement? Still unanswered questions here. Overall, this episode has both the culmination and unravelling of one mystery, and the reveals are large enough to set up some truly hefty stakes going forwards. We get the loss of another legacy character, but Rose's departure was one of defiance and heroism while sticking it to the bad guys in a way that did not endanger the innocents aboard the Intrepid. Definitely a way she would have wanted to go out. There's plenty left to explore for the next episode, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. And thank you for joining me on this review. I've been Rick, thanks again, and goodbye.